And that over time, because we're still very young, I mean, I know a lot of you who are newer might feel, oh my God, the work's been around for 15, 20 years. You know, some people every now and again, someone comes in and says, oh God, I missed the best time. I always point them to Van because he's, of all the senior teachers, he's the only one I know who's got nostalgia. You know, yeah, it was more intimate, but it was also holy hell. Ron is nodding his head. So, it's going to take time for this kind of understanding, I believe, to crystallize. And it's also going to take further development and evolution. Something as new and as core-generated as this will tend to stimulate many kinds of expression. That's one of the reasons why, as Linda and I developed our work, when we set about configuring the teaching we call the Tantra of Trust, we came up with a different way of languaging the whole process. We don't use any of the Waking Down to Mutuality language. It was, at the time, there was a level of it for me, honestly, as the writer. You know, I mean, initially the feeling was, that would just be so boring. But on another level, there was also a recognition that I've seen what happens when a way of languaging truth gets set in stone as the way. Then the language is taken to be the truth. Whereas language is just language. I mean, best to assume it all sucks, rather than it's all holy, you know. At best, it's a vague, weird approximation. You can only get one word out at a time, and meanwhile, existence is infinitely multiple at all times. So you're not going to get close to making language work. So anyway, I think it's time for me to shut up and for you all to tell me this makes no sense whatsoever, or whatever you feel about it.
I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Why are you saying that?
Because particularly the last, I mean, the whole thing you just said, but really right at the end about language, I'm really appreciative of that fact, because just like we're all emerging, evolving all the time, if the language stays the same, it's like there's a kind of stuckness built into it.
A kind of what?
A kind of stuckness built into it.
Stuckness
is always the same.
That's right.
Because we develop concepts about what all it means, and we lose.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Zoe?
There's a friend of mine who has started studying this thing called conscious language, and it talks about manifestation, and you don't say, I want a new job, because want implies lack, and that seems a little clunky, but so she consciously uses words like I choose, I create, I desire, and in a way there is energy to these words, and I've actually encountered in our small group how words are so ineffective and don't meet the need, but I just notice how my friend truly believes that these words create her future, about manifestation, how she's manifested a home for herself, and I kind of look at her and I think, I wish I had that comfort, but I know also it's an illusion, so I don't know what point I'm making, except that I still am trying to find my way. I still feel lost in this chaos, and this feels, well, it feels very uncomfortable. It's probably truer than some belief that she might have, but she gets a great deal of comfort from it, but it's not, I mean, I tried it, I read the book, and there's some interesting stuff there, but I can't quite buy the whole thing. Yeah, and the idea of manifestation, there's a lot of stuff out there about how we create the future.
Right.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and from my perspective, those can be very useful to people for whom that's the right next thing. When you drop out of the periphery into the core, those approaches will no longer fundamentally satisfy you. Paradoxically, they can get a lot more useful later. after you've gone through basic awakening and clarification of the core, you've become singular in yourself. You've adapted. It's not that the chaos is going to disappear. It's just that you're going to notice that it's simultaneously completely orderly. And it's configured to you, rather than somehow you being outside the configuration.
That
Does that make
sounds
sense?
lovely. I don't know if I want to go into how that would be useful after the core, because I'm still before that point.
Yeah,
for
well,
me, so.
just to say, as you become more confident that you're living this kind of life, that you are emerging in a radical, organismic, sentient way, you're becoming the Zoe, divinely human animal. Okay?
Yeah.
As you become more and more confident in that, among other things you discover, some of you may remember this phrase I've used, being tightens the leash. You discover that you have, in some ways, less and less room to just do whatever you like. Because your singularity, which is an interesting word from a physics perspective that we won't go into just now, your singularness requires you from day to day, moment to moment, to figure out what can I do that's real for me, regardless of what anybody else can possibly do.
From an authentic standpoint, I wasn't quite sure what you meant about
That's
less
what I
room,
mean.
but yeah.
That is what I mean.
Yeah.
And so this whole process is an adventure in authenticity and integrity. You know, we can use spiritual language, we can call it divinely this and sacred that and so on and so forth. But what that means is that it's so profoundly authentic, so profoundly of your own integrity, that you are knowing yourself as a sacred event. You might not use that word, but you have that quality of fidelity, faith. You have great faith in being and in your necessity, the necessity for you to clarify what's right for you from moment to moment and day to day. So,
That's beautiful. I mean, that feels good.
okay, great.